Hey man, I'm here for the Chase Bliss Automatone.
Got it. 1 sec. That should be it.
Thank you very much.
Bring it back in one piece, right?
Will do.
Cheers.
Some 60 years ago, people started making guitar pedals, and they were revolutionary devices that could alter the sound of the guitar and make it sound like an organ or a trumpet or whatever they were intended to do, but they didn't do that very well. So people started using them in other ways. Jimi Hendrix with the fuzz face, of course, and the Univibe. And this is a replica of an original Univibe. This is what it looked like in the 1960s. Big and bulky and heavy and yeah, not very practical, but it sounded absolutely fantastic. And then a few decades later, the Boss pedals were introduced, which were a lot smaller, more compact. And in the early 2000s, we saw the rise of digital modeling amps and stuff like the Behringer V-amp, the Line 6 pod. I had a Behringer V-amp because I couldn't afford the pod. And it was so insanely cool to have all these effects in just this little tiny device. And I don't remember what it sounds like, but I don't think it was very good, but it was really cool. I think I should get one to do a video with a Behringer V-amp. But the old technology remained. We were still using tube amps, we were still using analog effects, because according to many, that's the only way to go. But in the last decade, a lot has changed. Brands like Strymon and Eventide, Empress, entered the market with digital algorithms in pedals, which sound absolutely fantastic. And the Strymon Flint, for instance, totally digital, has been around for almost 10 years and hasn't had an update and is still very popular because it sounds really good. So I think finally we can say, and I'm one of those guys that used to say, I'm only playing a tube amp and analog pedals, but I'm finally there. I can use digital pedals and yeah, without remorse. And we're talking about 60 years of pedal evolution. In the last decade or so, really cool stuff has come out. And the evolution has gone really quickly. And a good example of that is how the Benson Preamp, which is this pedal, which Chris Benson based on his Chimera amplifier, was turned into this by Chase Bliss. And Chase Bliss is a brand that has the slogan analog heart, digital brain. It uses analog circuitry and a digital brain to control those analog features. So this is totally MIDI controllable. You can hook it up to a MIDI switcher like Morningstar or TheGigRig and control the presets with the switcher. So what I'm going to do in this video is check out these two wonderful pedals, see what they can do, and also I'm going to talk to a few people that know a lot more on the subject than I do. Let's do that first.
Gaan we in het Engels? Ja, dat is al, hè? Of niet?
Camera rolling, audio rolling. Cut. Start. Action.
Action.
Action. Hey man.
Hey, bud.
How are you?
Yeah, man, I'm good.
Hello?
Hey, Chris.
Hi.
Thank you so much for meeting me, man. That really means a
Thank
lot.
you for having me.
You know, I was actually pretty nervous for this interview because it's like meeting the John Mayer from the pedal world.
Oh, man. So funny to hear stuff like that. It's like, you know, I basically think I'm a piece of shit.
The question is, how did pedal evolution happen so fast? Because it was analog circuits for 50 years, and then we had the Behringer V-amp and Line 6 pod and all that stuff that came out, all the modeling stuff.
Of course, the pod, the beam.
The pod. Oh, you had cash for the pod. I was.
Yep. I bought it with my own hard-earned money from my paper delivering practice. I don't know, terrible, but yeah, I think it rocked. It was lovely.
If we go back to the 60s and back to fuzz circuits, which was some of the first, not the first, but some of the first electronic effects applied to guitar. And they really were very crude circuits. You've got signal tied directly to the base of transistors, but you know, you can't argue with the sound they produce, and you know, it's amazing. So much so that 60 years later, we're still messing with that same circuit.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got that fuzz circuit that has stood the test of time. Now, what happened with digital technology is it enabled so much more functionality, right? And all of a sudden, we were introduced to this idea of presets, that we could have a sound and have it stored. And it was like amazing. It blew our minds that we could have, you know, take a combination of sounds together and have that stored as one sound. I think the issue was that pretty quickly guitarists they realized that there was a link that wasn't quite there. It didn't take long for us to go from analog effects to digital effects, sort of, and then make our way back to analog.
I mean, I've heard a lot of really good digital things. I mean, I've heard a lot of bad ones too, but yeah, I gotta admit, I use some digital plugins when I mix a record, and I'm not inherently opposed to it. One thing that I don't like about the digital stuff is the predictability of it sometimes. I like to be surprised by little nuances and what other people would call a glitch. I really appreciate it when, you know, oh, my amp's not really doing exactly what I wanted it or what I thought it would do, but it's doing something more interesting. And I like those kind of happy accidents that come in the analog realm, that I know you can get them in the digital realm, but it's kind of, you know, I guess I haven't experienced that as much. So I just like the accidental random nature of of the analog stuff, I guess.
You have been one of the guys that has been at the forefront of all the new cool stuff that has come out. You were maybe even the first one to demo or try out the preamp, which I have here. It's yours.
That's mine. It's the prototype, right? It doesn't have a serial number.
Yeah, it doesn't have a serial number. It's even pre-production. You were one of the first with the microcosm, the hologram. Wonderful pedal as well. And now with the new guitar, with the, I don't know what it's called, with the touchpad.
Yeah, with like, it's a MIDI Pro 2. It's like a MIDI guitar with all sort of MIDI controls in the guitar built in. So it's really next level stuff. Yeah, it's crazy.
How do you feel about all the new developments going on and being integrated into an analog world? It seems to me you're quick to embrace new technology and you're really able to make music with it.
Yeah, well, that's like the key element of everything is I'm able to make music with it, because there's a lot of stuff as well that I tried out that you probably never saw because I just wasn't able to fit it into my own workflow. And I think that's one of the most important things actually when talking about gear. If you can use it for your own good, for your own creativity, then it's always a good thing, I think. It doesn't matter if it's digital or analog. And I think the lines are actually blurring these days, right?
And the digital world has progressed and is really great and, you know, does a bunch of amazing things. And in certain situations is, you know, I would say far superior. Like, for example, if you're at home in a really tiny room practicing, a little digital modeling amplifier is perfect in that situation. You know, trying to get a valve amplifier to a level that works is nigh on impossible in that scenario. Whereas, like, I use a Yamaha THR-10 little stereo thing, and it's fun and it's inspiring. And in that situation, the digital thing for me works amazing.
So I didn't grow up with like looking at a tube amp like that is the dream, actually. That was never something I had. I just wanted a good sound. So when I got like the Pod XT from line 6, there were a lot of great presets in that pod that really like blew my mind already. And I think when people talk about tube amps, the first thing I really noticed playing tube amps that they are so incredibly loud. And because I always played with like these modeling things, I was very much used to having like a good tone at a low volume. And I actually like that. Like I just love to play quietly because, you know, you can just crank an AC30 at midnight. You can just play like a whatever 4x12 Mesa Boogie and have a Dream Theater jump Trucci tone, but then just quiet because everyone is sleeping, for example, in my like old house. So I was never that kind of purist, but I have to say I also hate gimmicks, and the gimmick or feature thing sometimes isn't that clear for the viewer or for like the novice player.
For the guitar players who are out there gigging and doing their thing, it didn't take long for them to drift back to the analog world. But the digital world kept evolving, and what eventually happened was we worked out that we could manipulate those analog circuits digitally. And that has been so exciting. Yeah, well, totally. So TC Electronic, like 10 years ago, did a digitally controlled analog overdrive pedal. And it was really great. I think it confused people because they weren't really aware that it was still analog, you know, but digitally controlled. That technology has been around for a while, but it's been constantly evolved. And then, you know, to the point we end up with something like the Chase Bliss Mark II preamp. Now, what I love about that pedal, and I think this, the preamp Mark II embodies this, is that in the world of builders today, like 15 years ago, even 10 years ago, I don't see that collaborations like that would have happened, because it was, everyone had this idea is that we're all competing And if you sell a pedal to someone, it's going to take away a sale from me, and I need to work really hard to make sure that everything that I do is better than what you do. It's different now. I remember when I first saw Josh Scott and Robert Keeley, two of my favorite people, collaborate together on a pedal. And I thought, man, that is just the coolest thing ever. I know, and it's like, how does that even work? You know? And since then, we've seen these amazing collaborations between builders, and that is a byproduct of the community. What's happened is I think we've worked out that people who are into pedals and effects and tone, it's a lot to have in common, right? And it brings people together. And when you get a company like Benson, so Mick and I have been massive fans of the Benson Preamp. Such awesome sounds. We actually featured it in a show recently, just to remind ourselves, because we hadn't used it for a while, and it is just superb. And so you get a company like Benson who are so on top of that, the fine tuning it takes to get a preamp overdrive thing to sound and feel right, because that's an art, right? And then in conjunction with Joel and Chase Bliss, who are just so amazing at integrating that technology with the digital control. And then the magic happens.
Well, you know, I had released the pedal, the Mark I, I guess we should call it now, in May of 2018. And I forget if I just sent one to Joel or if he bought one, or I don't even know how he ended up with it, honestly. But I think it was 6 months, maybe a year later, that he was visiting Portland for some reason, and we were hanging out, and it's like, hey, I have a weird question, and feel free to say no, but can I make this into this? Can I make your preamp pedal, because I like it, into this? You know, what the Automaton is, or Automaton, or however you say it. And I was like, well, yeah, that would be amazing. You know, I've always liked Joel's stuff, and I like the fact that he did digital control of analog. I mean, that was like a I thought that was just really neat.
Yeah, so the Automatone concept really, the catalyst behind that, I think, was just trying to design my dream platform. Like, I'm really into making pedal platforms, and what I mean by that is, you'll see in our normal pedals that we have, it's all the same layout, and it just makes it makes designing stuff a lot easier and more fun for me, because it's like you already have this canvas and you're like, well, what am I able to do with this? And so I actually was I had that experience like a lot of people have, where you're at a really nice recording studio, and you see the flying faders on the mixing console, and you think, geez, that would be cool on a pedal. And I just assumed someone would do it. And after a few years went by, I was like, I think I could do this. And I started going down the rabbit hole and talking to a lot of people and getting advice and input. And almost everybody told me it was a horrible idea. But
why did they say why it was a horrible idea?
Moving parts, motors, stuff like that. But I just thought it was so cool. I just wanted to see it happen so bad. And anyway, I just kept pushing forward with it. And once I started to wrap my head around what the platform was going to look like, I started thinking about what kind of effects I wanted to start with it, because I want to make a whole line of effects in the Automaton series. And I've gotten to be really good friends with Chris Benson, and playing with his preamp pedal, I just thought there was a lot of tonal variety in that pedal, and I thought it would be a great pedal to control digitally, because there's a lot of advantages in that pedal to having presets, I think.
And he told me that he thought it was a good candidate because there are a bunch of different sounds you can get with the preamp, and most overdrives or preamp pedals seem to only have one or two usable sounds. He just liked how flexible it was. So that's pretty much how he approached me. Just, hey, got a crazy question. And then we started dreaming about the other features. At the time, I had been using mid-range EQ before or after my preamp pedal, just to get different sounds out of it, because understanding what amplifier EQ curves do, I knew, well, if I tweak the mid-range in this way or I accentuate this frequency, it's going to sound totally different. And I was just kind of experimenting with putting that mid EQ before or after the preamp, and it was like, hey, let's do parametric mid-range before and after. And a few weeks later, he was like, hey, I have another button. We got to figure out what that does. And that's when I came up with the different clipping options for it. And then I think he wanted to, it was his idea to put that fuzz in, which was brilliant. And that's how it went. Just a couple of dorks dreaming about what we wanted our overdrive pedal to do. Honestly, it hadn't really occurred to me that this would even be like a good part of my business. And I think I gave a pedal that I'd made a long time ago to Robert Keeley. It was like an octave fuzz or something like that. And he took it back, and, you know, I kept hearing from Keeley employees, oh, Robert really likes that. And then I think he reached out and said, hey, if you ever have a pedal design that you want us to manufacture, you know, that we would do that. I said, okay. And so I started thinking about it. And at the same time, I had a couple customers who were asking about, hey, can you make an amp in the box, like a solid state version of your amps? And it's like, well, I guess that would make sense. And so I took an evening and took my Chimera preamp section and put it on a breadboard using JFET transistors, and really it didn't change much after that evening. It was all there. Yeah, for my part of it was one evening, and after that I designed like a through-hole circuit board for it, which was just garbage. And then that probably took another like 5 or 6 hours. And I sent it to Keeley and said, do what you're going to do with this circuit, and here's, you know, the layout, here's what I want it to look like. And they put it all, they did it using a surface mount technology. And what they sent me, you know, ended up sounding better than both my breadboard and the through-hole board that I made. And I just signed off on it. It's like, this is great. Thank you. It wasn't supposed to be like the big deal. It was supposed to be like, oh, we might sell 200 of these. And then obviously that didn't happen. Like, we've sold thousands and thousands at this point, and got the attention of Joel, which I think is about the coolest thing that's ever happened.
Do you find it easier to, like with the reverb, was it easier to make that one? Because the concept already exists and you have a format in which you pour.
I thought it was going to be way easier, but it turns out anytime that you design a DSP platform, which that kind of is, there's just all sorts of noise considerations and performance stuff. So it was more challenging than I thought, even with everyone's expertise that was working on it. And then also just we're all such perfectionists, you know, us at Chase Bliss, and then also the people at Maris. So yeah, it just took a while.
the buddies I talked to said I was doing this interview with you, they all had the same question. What will be the next automaton?
Did they really think I can answer that? No, we're actually working on one right now. We're working on one right now that's very fun. I can't wait to. We're still pretty far off from it being ready, but so far it's going really well, and I think people are going to like it.
I have more pedal designs at this point than amp designs. I've got probably 10 in the chute. And some of them are waiting on parts to become available, and others, we can only make so many, and we have a lot of interest in the germanium fuzz right now, so we're just trying to keep up with that. But I think we're probably going to be seeing more over the next few months, hopefully.
Obviously, we've launched G3 and Atom, and that's been years and years in the making. And we're expanding on that. We've got so many ideas. It's such a wonderful platform to work with. And, there's all the Bluetooth capability that it has. So we're working, just expanding on the capability of G3 at the moment. But we've got about, 5 or 6 things sort of going through. Well, generally at any time, we've got about 5 or 6 things working their way through. The thing that I love more than anything else in the world, I suffer with insomnia, and I'll wake up at 3 a.m, go, I've got this idea, and I'll go and write it down, and then I'll sit with our engineers and we'll just work on it and, see if we can make it work, see if it's worth doing. But that is for me, that is the most fun thing in the world, and it's I feel so blessed every single day that I get to do this. It's the most fun ever. So yeah, there's always stuff coming through.
Where do you see pedals going next? Do you have a vision on the future for pedals?
I think that we'll probably see some more digital control of analog stuff, because even when I started, I was kind of surprised that there wasn't more, because it's hard to do, but it's not, you can do it, but also it's interesting, I've gotten more into digital stuff because it's just such a wild canvas, to paint on, and endless possibilities. And we've always been more interested in doing things like trying to figure out what's new and useful and creative, trying to add something new to the industry, rather than just saying, hey, we're going to put all this technology inside, one multi-effect or something.
I mean, I'm an enthusiast. And this is my passion. I absolutely love it. And the TheGigRig was born out of a passion. It wasn't born out of a business plan. You know what I mean? And I think that's part of the community, because we're all enthusiasts. It's why we're here, because we absolutely love it. So my journey was not as an engineer or as a business person, it was as a guitar player, and who had come from that era of, amazing functionality. I had all the racks and MIDI stuff, and, and then, I had this experience when I was, going through that. I just heard this guy with an old Strat, a Tube Screamer, and a Fender Twin, and it was like, the gear that he was using, it looked like junk. And it was the most awe-inspiring sound. And I knew I had to reevaluate things. And my experience was, all these things in isolation are amazing. The issue is when you had them together, and these chains of things, what would happen to the sound. And, I think as any guitar player will attest to, if you've spent time on the instrument, learning to be dynamic learning about control, you don't want that robbed. You know what I mean? So that for me was my journey. How do we keep the stuff that we want and get rid of the things that rob those dynamics?
I always like to start out with the most basic thing ever. Like whenever I browse a preset on an amp modeler, for example, you see that there's so many delays and compression and reverb and multiple amps on there. I always like to start out, let's throw everything off. Let's start with a good, basic, clean sound. Just an AC30, just a Twin Deluxe, you know, or whatever, Deluxe reverb, and then build your sound from what you know and what you love, and then start exploring with multiple effects, maybe stereo rigs or parallel signal paths, whatever. Because that's what I know, that's where I come from actually. And if you have a decent sound with minimal options in a thing that has multiple options or even more than you can ever think of, then you can always expand from the basic starting point. That for me always helps. So when there's a pedal with multiple options, like the pedal you're holding right now, there's a lot of these extra buttons with mids and stuff. I always start out with just the most basic settings. No fuzz, no mids engaged. Just, okay, how does the gain react to my playing? Find a nice sound you like, and then see how the mids interact with the sound you actually like. Maybe you can make it even better. Maybe it isn't for you, so it's the options shouldn't scare you, they should help you. And by introducing options little by little, that always helps for me a lot.
The important thing that I've discovered is, this stuff, I believe that, for tone and that sort of stuff, the things that we do is really important, but the most important thing is just to have fun when you're playing. That is the be all and end all. And as heady as some of these concepts are, it's so important that we don't let them get in the way of people just having fun with their gear. And it's one thing I love about the community that we've built up. It's very inclusive. I think what we're seeing now is more and more people just being really encouraging, and because certainly for me and all my friends who are in this, we just understand what a life-changing thing being passionate about any art form can do. And so we can disappear down the nth degree of how amazing this gear is and stuff, but for me the most important thing is just to is hearing inspired players just connecting with their gear in any way, because that once you do that, once you feel that connection, you get to a point in your playing where you really feel connected, it's life-changing, and it starts you down a road that is once you've started down that's it, you're now got a lifelong journey happening, and it's wonderful. It's wonderful.
Goosebumps, man. Thanks so much.
Buddy, you're so welcome.
All right, this is it. 2 wonderful pedals, and thank you all for watching. Thank you, Paul, Chris, Dan, and Joel for taking the time to meet me. It was an absolute pleasure. I'm gonna bring this one back to Paul now. See you all next time. Bye.
Hey, what's up?
Hey, man. Here's the Automatone. Thanks, man. Bye. 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 Ooh.